All right, welcome back to the House Environment Committee. We're going to change topics to finish up our walkthrough of potential proposed changes to H 915 from the Senate. Our Legislative Council.
So I believe we were on page 39 of the side-by-side. And beginning with section 9, you're in the covered household hazardous products, stewardship organization, extended producer responsibility requirements. You established that stewardship program for household hazardous products a few years ago. It's been the agency has been implementing that with the industry. There has been some requests from some sectors of industry to make amendments to the program, because right now the program requires that all manufacturers of covered household hazardous products issue one plan to you. And that one plan would incorporate all the manufacturers. And the agency intentionally wanted it that way when you drafted it, because they were concerned about multiple plans being offered from multiple different sectors. But I think the agency has gotten to the point where they understand that they need to have multiple plans, because the concerns and the way to manage the different products has to be tailored to those product sectors. And there are alternatives that are out there for certain product sectors that are not out there for other product sectors. And to provide that flexibility, they are proposing changes that would allow a product sector to first to not require one plan, and then to allow product sectors of household hazardous products to issue their own plans. And I can give you an example of that when we get to a relevant point. But section 9 amends 10 VSA 7182, which is the sales ban on covered household hazardous products if you're not registered. And then the registration requirements. The first thing it does is at the bottom of page 39, it pushes out from July 1, 2026 to July 1, 2028, the requirement that the stewardship organization renew its registration with the secretary. As I said, the agency is working with the industry to get the stewardship organization and the plan set up. They just need some additional time. And then moving on from there, section 10 on page 40, going on to page 41. This is in the collection plan requirements. This is where you will see, and I'm sorry, it kind of goes from 40 to 41. Where on or before July 1, 2026, any stewardship organization registered with the secretary as representing manufacturers shall coordinate and submit to the secretary for review one collection plan for all manufacturers. So that's where you have the current one collection plan requirement. What the agency is proposing is that they're going to propose a collection plan that addresses how covered household hazardous products enrolled in that plan meet the requirements of this chapter. So there is possibility for multiple plans. And then you will see, let's skip over section 11. We'll come back to section 11. Section 12 on page 42, just to continue that thread of thought about the multiple plans, you'll see that there is a transition section. Beginning on July 1, 2027, a group of manufacturers may register a new stewardship organization covering a class of household hazardous products and their packages when collected. Now, Matt was talking to you yesterday about, I think he gave you the example of like the fluid industry, oil, etc. There are product stewardship programs that are set up for products like that. That is one of the groups of manufacturers that would like to have their own plan approved in Vermont so that they can work with other EPR programs and not that are like that are managing like products that they have, instead of working with a larger stewardship organization that's managing products that aren't similar to their products. And so this gives those manufacturers that ability, but there shall only be, in section 12, there shall only be one stewardship organization per class of products. However, there may be more than one stewardship program administering the requirements of 10 VSA Chapter 164B. So if you want to do different product classes, you can do that, but the agency is not going to give each manufacturer of those products in that class their own stewardship plan. You have to be within that one product class plan.
Or product classes defined.
Well, that's going to be up to both the stewardship organization and A&R. Because remember, when you set up a stewardship plan, you can't have unreasonable barriers to participation by product manufacturers that are within that covered definition. So if a new like manufacturers group want to create their own stewardship organization, they're going to have to define what that's going to cover. And that's going to be up to A&R to approve so that there aren't unreasonable barriers to similar products or similar manufacturers being in that EPR.
It's like a very potentially challenging to do.
It will, honestly, in my opinion, it's going to be about how each of these product classes is proposing to manage their product. If your product can be managed in a way that they're proposing, like recycling hydraulics, they've been doing that for years. And can your product fit into that disposition? If yes, yeah, you probably should be able to enter that. If no, then why are you even trying? And so I think there will be issues like that will need to be worked out.
Representative Sackerman.
I'm not sure this is like directly related, but it makes me wonder about like how the different PROs would operate, not just within the state, but in connection with other state laws that would have PROs. So, like, it seems, because what you're saying here is that if we keep it narrow, then these people who know how to do this one thing can focus on doing it well. But presumably the same manufacturers operating in different states have the same issues. And so it would make sense that they would be operating within that realm simply because then if New York has a similar PRO, then they're not reinventing the wheel, that they can operate similarly over, and that can evolve over time as different states start buying into EPR programs.
As EPR programs become more common and for some product categories, even ubiquitous, what the industry is doing, they've evolved ways to deal with the two. Some create a nonprofit corporation that's going to manage all of their EPR programs, but then they set up subcorps for each state that has an EPR program. So they manage the liability. So the liability that might come from Vermont doesn't attach to the liability from New York, but you have that umbrella entity managing how all of those products are going to be disposed of or managed as they go into the future. You have that one overarching EPR with liability protection per state. Others like Paint Care, they've set up kind of a national organization to run the EPR program for paint and to advocate for how paint should be managed. And they are very involved in the EPR program for paint in pretty much every state, because every manufacturer of paint, except like very niche paint people, are part of that EPR. And so they kind of drive how paint is managed and try to do it in a way that's common across jurisdiction. So yeah, I think as EPR expands, as products and sectors start to manage, because ultimately it's gonna profit. And so they want to manage their their sectors for that profit ultimately. And maybe not for everything, but. So that brings you to Section 12 sub B, beginning July 1, 2027, an approved stewardship organization covering a class may submit a plan for the products covered by the approved stewardship organization. The plan shall describe any transition from the previously approved plan. The secretary has 120 days to review and approve or reject any plan submitted. And then that plan takes effect on July 1, 2030. So those product categories, those manufacturers in them have 3.5, 4 years to set up their own stewardship organization and develop their own plan and get it approved. And then that takes you back to section 11.
Actually, while we're talking about dates. So is the stewardship organization, have they filed a registration? Do you know? The main one,
I think they have, the original one has filed an application for a registration. I don't believe it's, I have to check with Matt to see if it's actually been approved.
Okay.
Um,
We need to follow up on that.
And then,
Question.
Yes, right, Representative.
I was following and tracking all this until we got to that very last sentence where it says the plan shall take effect on or July 1, 2030.
That's
I thought,
for the sub ones. That's like for the, let's say the lubricants, the ones who are not joining the main one.
okay. Still, I thought for what Representative Sakowicz was talking about, that this was kind of going to be an ongoing rolling thing. And as new classes of products are identified that want to create EPRs, it's kind of an ongoing thing. I didn't realize there was like a deadline that anybody's going to do an EPR or a PRO for anything had to be done and in by 2030.
Yeah,
I thought it was kind of an ongoing rolling thing.
I understand your question.
I think the agency wants some surety about what they are going to regulate. And so they're giving the industry time to come up with alternatives, but not forever time. With that said, if something happens where a product category can be managed in a different way, there's opportunity because all of these plans are 5-year plans. And you come back and you say, we need to propose another plan. And maybe the agency has to get a tweak to legislation to do that. But I think they will have the opportunity if there is innovation, if there is new need for new plans to do that.
So if we have known classes of products that we want to have done by 2030, I
Yeah.
understand that. Can we list those somewhere, or is that implied by something the way
Well,
that?
that's a great question. I don't know what all the classes are, and I don't know if all the classes want to have their own plan.
That's what, I guess that gets at my question.
And Matt spoke to that a little bit yesterday when I asked, were they supportive of this? And he said, because I said, isn't this just for them? And he said, they don't want to do that. We'll have Matt back in.
Don't want to do what?
They don't want to have it just call out one class in the statute because they anticipate it could apply to others. So we're doing a walkthrough of language that hasn't quite passed the Senate yet anyway.
Okay.
So we'll have time to have Matt back in
Okay.
and ask questions.
So I guess my point is we can't have both ways. Can't say we're leaving it open on the number of classes that can be invented, but we're putting a hard date on finishing it off. So can't have it both ways. Either they both, or they want it to be closed.
The universe of products is known, right? There's a definition of covered household hazardous products. And they are on notice that they have to have an EPR program. All of them,
Everything sold in the state.
right? And then now they're like, well, maybe we manage our product better with our own EPR. And that's what we're going to do.
Okay, so the implied closure of the system is the fact that this is all under the household hazardous waste section. So this is not going to be like for packaging at large or
If you need to do packaging, you're gonna have to do a standalone bill for packaging.
Okay, so that is the universe. Okay.
That is its own creature. So the last section that you have not looked at is section 11. Remember in the bottle bill, the agency was recouping its cost through creating a budgetary process where they could then charge the stewardship organization or organizations. It is the same process. So the stewardship organization shall reimburse the secretary for the cost of overseeing administration of the program. Secretary annually provides an estimate of the cost of administering the program to the stewardship organization. Stewardship organization shall provide any comments to the secretary's budget within 30 days. A&R responds to the comments. These comments are provided to the General Assembly as part of the secretary's budget. Then as part of the budget, the reimbursement is incorporated into the A&R budgeting process. And the stewardship organization shall not be required to reimburse any agency costs unless that cost is approved as part of the agency's budget. So it's a pretty thorough process to vet the cost to be assessed, reimbursed, and then you have to approve that as well. And then the last thing is the effective dates, which I think I walked you through some of these yesterday, maybe not all of them. Most of them are for the bottle bill. You'll see the new subdivision 3, section 2, the future requirements for acceptance of a beverage container. That goes into effect March 1, 2029. The capital implementation grants, they take effect July 1, 2029, and they repeal in 2033. And then the repeal of the handling fees, remember for that, from March of 29 to July of 2030, there's a required handling fee underneath the stewardship plan. That repeals on July 1, 2030. That's about it.
Any questions? Any further questions? Right. Thank you, Michael.